Hello, warriors of the ARTE Da Guerra channel. In today's video, we are going to talk about a very special desertion happening in the Ukrainian army because it is taking place on French soil. But before we start, I wanted to tell you that I am Commander Robinson-Farinazzo, a retired Navy officer. And this is the ARTE Da Guerra channel, a platform for military and geopolitical strategic analyses made by professionals. So if you're new here, subscribe to our channel and give us a like. Well, here's what's happening. There is a group, I'm following the news for you. There is a group of 2,300 French soldiers training to form a brigade. This brigade will later fight in France. Well, they would be there in Marne, France. The name of the brigade is Anna of Kiev, in honor of a Ukrainian princess who married King Henry I of France. So what is the training of this brigade like? The brigade has about 4,500 men, 2,300 train in France, and the rest train in Ukraine. These 2,300 who are training in France are trained by French military personnel. They are supervised, of course, by their superiors, officers, and sergeants. There are about 300 officers and sergeants who oversee these personnel, do translation, and a series of other tasks. Whenever you send a troop abroad, you also send some commanders, of course, to maintain organization, hierarchy, discipline, etc.
Organização, hierarquia, disciplina, etc.
What happens is the following. This case is quite controversial and is circulating in the press because it seems there have been more than 50 desertions on French soil. And what happens? The French authorities find themselves in a bind, because in fact, it's a crime from another country. I don't know how the Ukrainians are handling the desertions, whether they are treating them as crimes. Here in Brazil, it's a crime. But there, it becomes quite complicated. The French jurisdiction is in a tricky situation in this story. So, there are people saying that it's not possible to arrest the personnel, all that, right? If it really happened, if there are indeed 50 deserters, it's quite a complicated matter. In a brigade of 2,300 men, having 50 desertions is almost 2%. On foreign soil especially, besides the scandal, right?
50 deserções aí é quase 2%. Em solo estrangeiro, principalmente, além do escândalo, né? É uma coisa bastante alta. Mas o que acontece?
It's quite a high thing. But what happens? These people, young people, who have been recruited now, right? And they are already seeing, it's what I always say, a phrase I always use, from the Vietnam War era. Nobody wants to be the last to die in a war that's already lost. Everyone knows that Ukraine is on the ropes in this war. Probably Trump will want to end this war. They are waiting for negotiations. So, in people's logic, why would I die for something that no longer makes sense, right? And so, if it's really true, because there are investigations, there are people in Ukraine who deny it, the usual thing. But if it's really true, it's already a very bad sign that the Ukrainian army might be close to disintegration. It's hard to know. If there's one thing Ukraine has proven, I always say to you first that it's the best army NATO has had. I have no doubt about that. Second, also, that they are quite resilient after almost 3 years of war, in a condition quite inferior to the Russian army in terms of training, doctrine, etc. And even so, they keep fighting. It's a brave army. It's a very capable army. I always say that the British, Italian, French armies couldn't even come close to the Ukrainians. But we have to remember something that is natural. Over time, although the personnel, I mean officers and sergeants who survive, become more experienced, sometimes even more productive, the quality of the recruits coming in always tends to decline. That's the trend. As the army starts losing the war, you also lose the quality of the recruits, because people who were in civilian life until then see some news that the military doesn't see and say, I'm not going to die for this. So, that might be what's effectively happening in Ukraine.
Agora, a gente olha aí as outras notícias, os sites.
Now, we look at other news, the sites, the European sites. This unit, the ANA of Kiev, is the 155th Mechanized Brigade of Ukraine. There is a lot of denial regarding this, but we also need to see how the public, the French society, will react. Because, for example, if these guys who deserted will have shelters, where will they go from there? Will the police recapture? Will they send these people back? It's a very complicated situation. In fact, they've thrown a hot potato into the hands of the French government's soldier. That's the truth.
Essa é que é a verdade. E a gente não sabe também, às vezes, caso desse, eu tô falando para vocês,
And we don't know either. Sometimes in a case like this, I'm telling you, following the latest news, it could be the end of the training program. When this type of problem occurs, the French government might end up opting to terminate the training program. This is bad for Ukraine, because Ukraine needs, first of all, a place without interruptions to train these people. If you train personnel in Ukraine, there's a risk of being bombed. Secondly, it needs access to facilities, specialized personnel, the French technicians in this case, the equipment itself, etc. Because when you send personnel who are training in France, they are not just learning infantry techniques. The group learns weapon maintenance, the entire technological aspect of equipment operation, etc., with French instructors who already have experience in maintaining these pieces of equipment. Often, they don't have, of course, the experience of veteran Ukrainian combatants, but they are people who effectively know the nuances of that equipment, in addition to having suitable facilities. I always say that the more technological the military equipment you provide to your army, the more sophisticated the facilities need to be. You need computers and a series of other things to properly manage the instruction. Anyway, we will continue to follow this case. It's not a surprise. This is the truth. It's not a surprise. The press here is not reporting this, but in Europe it's becoming a scandal. This is the truth. And it is an indicator, it could be an indicator of the condition of the Ukrainian army, in any case. Today is the 8th, 12 days until Trump's inauguration, but he has already changed his tone a bit. When he was a candidate, he said he would end the war in Ukraine in 24 hours. Now he's talking about 6 months. Soon it will be postponed indefinitely. This is typical of politics after you take office. I have said several times here that Trump will find a very different White House. Anyway, that was our video for today. We will continue to follow this case, which is quite scandalous. Subscribe to our channel. Tell us what you think. If there was this defection, if there wasn't, if the Ukrainian army can hold on, if peace is on the way. Tell us where you're speaking from, your city, your state. It's very important to know that. And you too, you can see here on the ticker, is our ARTE Da Guerra course school. Let's get to know the school, folks. The link is here in the description. There are wonderful courses on drones, missiles, and techniques of the Augusto Army. You will find excellent courses, the best instructors in Brazil. Contribute to our channel as well, through Super Sticker or Super Chats. Or if you want to make a donation, the link is in the description. Lastly, I need to remind you of the following. There is now the ARTE Da Guerra channel in English. The link is in the description. Let's subscribe and share it with your relatives abroad. Let's comment there too. You can comment in Portuguese. No problem. We'll be back shortly. Always with responsibility and commitment. And faith in Brazil, folks. See you later.
Compromisso e fé no Brasil, pessoal. Até mais.